So we are here with Pat Graham, State Director of the Nature Conservancy of Arizona. Pat, tell us about what your job entails.
Well, I'm really fortunate. I'm the state director for the Nature Conservancy. It's a great organization. The mission of the Nature Conservancy is to conserve the lands and water upon which all life depends. And we've been operating here in Arizona now for 50 years, so we're really proud of that. We're one of the largest conservation organizations, land and water conservation organizations in the world. We work on 5 continents. Arizona is a really special place. A lot of people don't realize that we have the 3rd most biologically diverse state here in Arizona, and the most biologically diverse state without a coastline. It's really a special place. It's the convergence of 3 deserts in the southern end of the Rocky Mountains and the northern end of the Sierra Madre. So it's a really, really rich place for wildlife species. The other aspect of it that I think is important is that we started off buying land, managing land, acquiring nature preserves in Arizona, and we have some great ones here. But over time, we recognized with the increase in population that buying land wasn't going to be sufficient to conserve our natural resources. And so what we ended up doing is sort of shifting and broadening our scope. And today we work on things from forest health to a program we call Growing by Design to helping water security, both for nature and for people.
Excellent. It seems like the Nature Conservancy does quite a long list of items.
Yeah, very busy.
That's great. Can you tell us a little bit about your background with water and natural resource management, whether that's academic or other work-related experiences you've had in your past?
Sure. I'm originally from Montana, and I got a master's degree in fish and wildlife management. So I started off, working with fisheries in the Columbia River Basin, working with the Northwest Power Planning Council, and their issues there was really trying to how to balance hydropower energy with the salmon migrations up in the Columbia. I was with the Montana Department of Fish and Wildlife and Parks for a number of years. I eventually became the director of that department, and so oversaw a lot of our fish, wildlife, and parks programs, which included a very active in-stream flow program, working with reservoir operations, and I helped pass the state's first water leasing law for in-stream flows. Here in Arizona, I've served now on water councils for 3 different governors. We in the Nature Conservancy have our own Colorado River program. It's a 6-state, 2-country program, and I chair the leadership team for that.
Seems like a good mix of policy and science.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you. So what stands out to you as a highlight in your work experience in Arizona?
What I really enjoy about working for the Conservancy is sort of the blend of nature and people. It's not so much about protecting nature from people, it's about protecting nature for people. So, we really believe in a world where both nature and people can thrive. So there's probably 3 things I would point out that really kind of excite me about working here. And one is that we try to find solutions for some of the bigger, more complex challenges facing nature and people. And so that requires us to think differently and work at a pretty large scale. Second is I love the fact that we have the opportunity to be innovative and creative in trying to come up with those solutions. A couple of examples would be our work with water replenishment projects down on the upper San Pedro River, and then developing this new technology using tablet computers to improve the way that our forests are thinned. And third, it all really comes down to bringing people together to create shared understanding. And I think we are very good at bringing together people with diverse interests. We are advocates without being adversarial, and we really value being considered a trusted partner.
Excellent. So what is your specific role within the Governor's Water Initiative, or what do you see your role being in the Governor's Water Augmentation Council?
Well, there's probably a couple of ways to think about that. One is that I think we're one of the few non-for-profit organizations there. And I think those types of organizations like ours provide a really important role. Government has its role, business has its role. But a lot of the glue in our society is held together by nonprofit organizations, working on everything from veterans issues to victims of abuse to the health of our environment. And so our other role, of course, is as a representative for the health of the environment. And so we take that very seriously. But at the same time, I think it's important to recognize that no one organization has responsibility for that. We keep saying over and over again that the health of our economy is inextricably linked to the health of our environment. And so it's not for any one organization to be responsible for the health of our environment. We all have to take responsibility for that.
Well said. So when we talk about augmenting the state's water supply, that's a big part of the Governor's Water Initiative. Do you have any thoughts on what it will take to get that job done in a meaningful way?
Yeah. Well, first I'd like to acknowledge Governor Ducey for putting this together, because I think the timing of doing this right now has been critical to elevate this issue to that level and to convene people around it. So, the governor deserves a lot of credit. And second, to acknowledge the Department of Water Resources, because really water is an incredibly complex subject, and there's lots of voices around water. And for the most part, people are confused about water. Do we have enough? Don't we have enough? Who do I believe? And so it's really important, particularly right now, that we have that we can talk as much as possible with one voice, and that voice be trusted. And so I think those are two really important aspects to kind of help frame this. Within the, thinking about issues in Arizona, we always, it's always the issues in front of you are the ones that are the most pressing. But, as a global conservation organization, I am aware that there was a meeting held 2 years ago by leaders, government leaders and business leaders from around the world, to plot out what they thought were the most important issues facing the world. And you can think of all the different things from cybersecurity to terrorism to the economy. And at the top of that list, in the top two, was water. So water is viewed by around the world as one of the most pressing issues that we're facing. Issues around water scarcity are going to be increasingly important in potentially giving rise to conflicts and a variety of other issues around the world. So it isn't just in Arizona that water's a big issue, but it certainly is here as well. I think about what we're faced with sort of as kind of the long game and then maybe the short to intermediate term. And I think in the long game, we're looking at the issues around water supply and how do we cost effectively really increase water supply. I certainly don't have the answer for that, and I think it's a process to get there, to figure out both what those options are, and frankly, it's likely that there's going to be some new innovations and technologies that will emerge in the years ahead that will help us close that gap. But it is something that we need to be focused on now. But in addition, and this is something that Senator Kyle has said, and I really agree with, is that we really also need to be focused on the short and midterm, which is what can we do now to continue to use wisely and better use the water resources that we already have. I mean, really, that's what we have to work with right now. And so I think that's an important part. Arizona's done a good job with water conservation. We've done a good job with the Groundwater Management Act. There's likely more that can and needs to be done. One of the things that I can point to that we're working on is that we're working on creating a water fund for the Salt and Verde River system. And that water fund is really a mechanism where communities, companies, and others can invest in projects to improve the water quality and the water quantity in the Salt and Verde River system. By working collaboratively with upstream communities, with farmers and others, we have a chance not only to improve the security of water in that system moving forward, which will decline if we don't take action. But we also have a way to sort of help bridge, I think, relationships between urban and rural communities. We're not going to get where we need to go if it becomes a win-lose situation. And so we're trying to design this in a way that provides benefits for both upstream and downstream water users.
Excellent. That touches on so many different points. I think that you really get to the heart of long-term and short-term issues. But if you could just identify one near-term, short-term, or even intermediate-term issue that's probably the greatest challenge to Arizona right now, what would you say that is in regards to water resources?
Well, one I touched on earlier is I think the complexity of the water and issue, and I say that because I think ultimately we need to build a shared understanding to get collective action, and so it isn't specifically an action item, but being able to address the issue of complexity is going to be critical in getting action. The second, I think, is to answer that question, it really depends on where you live and what you do. So if you live in Wilcox, the answer to that question is going to be very different than if you live in Yuma or if you live in Phoenix. But overall, I would say it is bringing into balance our water use with our supply. There are places where we're using more water than there is available, and so resolving that issue wherever it might occur is really critical to building the foundation, whether it's in our pumping out of groundwater basins or the issues around the Colorado River.
Just for fun, if you can magically fix one water resources issue in the state, and you've listed quite a few and potential solutions for those, but if you could fix just one issue right now, what would that issue be?
Well, I think probably the most pressing issue right now is implementing the drought contingency plan. And I say that not only because to avert the crisis that potentially is looming on the Colorado River and for the state of Arizona if it's not resolved, but I also think if it's done right, it can help create the conditions to solve other important water problems. So often we look at the history of water and it becomes about positional bargaining, people getting entrenched in positions that are difficult to let go of. And we're not going to solve the water issues of tomorrow by holding on strictly to our perceptions of what worked in the past. And so I think this really is an important issue to resolve, but if it's done right, it can help build in the future. These kind of issues only move at the speed of trust. And so, if this process continues to build trust, then I think it'll make it possible to achieve other things. And if I could add one other thing, I think it's important too that we recognize that really water is the currency of our economy. It's the currency of our life. It's a currency of our communities, and it's really easy at times to take water in this country for granted. And so from my perspective, from our perspective, a recognition of just how precious water is would go a long ways towards helping us, manage and treat water like the scarce resource that it is. In many ways, water is way more valuable to us than gold. So,
I like what you said about developing trust. I think that's well put. Thank you for your responses and your time. And I just have one more question for you. What's your favorite of the Nature Conservancy areas in the state? If you had to pick one that you like the most.
That's a question I get asked a lot. We have 7 really beautiful preserves around the state. And what I've found in visiting at every one of them is that each one of them has, one thing is interesting, and it's subject to this, every one of them has water at the heart of it. Here we are living in an arid state, and yet maybe that's why, because water is so critical to life, that each one has water. But they're all particularly unique. There is no one that's the same as the other. And I think you can find enjoyment and opportunity to experience nature in different ways. Aravaipa Canyon, there's really nothing like it in the Southwest. Ramsey Canyon, when the birds are migrating through, is an incredible place. Sitting at the foothills of the San Francisco peaks at Hart Prairie is just magical. I would be hard-pressed to pick one, but I would say you can't go wrong with any of them. So.
Good answer. I like that. Thank you so much for your time, Pat.
Sure.